The 4th of July, a paper plate bending under the weight of a cheeseburger, fries still sizzling, steam curling off the top of the bun. Somebody reaches for the ketchup without even looking at the bottle, because you already know what ketchup is supposed to taste like. Rich, bright, tangy. Tomatoes first, sweetness second. Except lately, something's off. The bottle looks the same. The logo never moved. But what comes out of it isn't the ketchup you grew up on. Here's the thing. Americans go through more than 10 billion ounces of ketchup a year, and almost all of it comes from a small handful of corporations. Tomato costs have climbed hard the last few years, and every public food company answers to the same master every 90 days, the quarterly earnings call. The villain tonight isn't one bottle. It's not even one company. It's the corporate habit of protecting the margin instead of protecting the product. When tomatoes get expensive, something else quietly moves in to take their place. And get this, you're paying more for the bottle right, as less of it is actual tomato. If you're 55 or older, you remember when ketchup tasted like fruit, not corn syrup with red dye doing the talking. You're also the generation paying $4, $5, $6 a bottle for it. You deserve to know what's inside. Tonight, 7 ketchup brands that stopped living up to the label, and 4 companies still proving ketchup doesn't have to taste like a sugar packet. I'm James. I read the labels, the filings, and the fine print, so subscribe if you want somebody doing that homework for you. Because nobody else on your grocery run is going to. Let's start at the bottom. Number 7, great value, Walmart. The memory, a budget cookout, paper cups of red plastic, nobody complaining because nobody expected much in the first place. Here's how it works. Great value isn't made by Walmart. It's a private label contract product manufactured by whichever supplier wins the lowest bid that quarter. Walmart, a publicly traded company answering to shareholders every single earnings season, sets an aggressive shelf price and lets contract manufacturers compete downward to hit it. That means the recipe isn't fixed. It's negotiable, and tomato paste, the most expensive line item, has the first place to shave. Take a second with that. The identical red bottle on the shelf this year may not share a formula with the bottle from 3 years ago because Walmart can and does rebid the contract. Ingredient panels on great value ketchup consistently show tomato concentrate lower on the list relative to water and corn syrup than name brand competitors. And shopper reviews on Walmart's own site repeatedly describe a thinner, more watery pour compared to Heinz or Hunt's. That's not marketing spin. That's the customers themselves in writing on the product page. The consumer takeaway, if tomato paste isn't doing the heavy lifting in a ketchup, your tongue finds the sugar before it finds the acid. That's the tell every time. Transition, store brands play this game because they can hide behind value. The next name at least has to answer to its own logo. Number 6, Signature Select, Albertsons. The memory, the grocery run where you grab the store brand because the name brand aisle was empty or the price gap was too wide to ignore. Albertsons went public again in 2020, and going public means one thing above all else. Quarterly targets replace family judgment. Signature Select exists to hit an aggressive price point across every category, ketchup included, and the private label playbook for hitting that price point almost always runs through the same lever. Stretch the tomato solids, lean on stabilizers for consistency instead of concentration. Read that sentence, then read what happened next. Consistency, in food manufacturing language, doesn't mean tastes the same as fresh tomatoes. It means tastes the same bottle to bottle, even if what it tastes like is thin. Consumer reviews across grocery delivery apps describe Signature Select ketchup as noticeably runnier than national brands, needing extra shakes or squeezes to get the same coverage on a hot dog. That's the tomato solids talking. Or not talking, since there's less of them. Takeaway, cheap ketchup rarely saves you money by being efficient. It saves money by being diluted, and you're the one adding the extra squeeze to compensate. Number 5, Hunt's the memory. The classic Heinz rival, a little sweeter, sitting in the same fridge door for decades. Hunt's is owned by Conagra Brands, a publicly traded packaged food giant with dozens of labels under one roof. From Slim Jim to Marie Callender's to Hunt's itself. And get this, a portfolio that size means ketchup isn't a passion project inside Conagra. It's one line item competing against every other brand in the building for capital and attention on an earnings call. Conagra has spent years managing commodity input costs, tomatoes, sugar, packaging, while defending margin targets to Wall Street analysts every quarter. That pressure doesn't disappear before it reaches the bottle. It shows up as recipe tweaks that lean the sweetness dial up rather than the acidity dial, because sugar is cheaper and more stable to source than premium tomato paste. Blind taste panels run by food publications over the years have consistently placed Hunt's as noticeably sweeter and less tomato forward than Heinz, which is the exact signature of a recipe optimized for cost rather than character. Consumer reviews echo it. Search Hunt's too sweet, and you'll find years of complaints, not a one-off. Takeaway: more sweetness than tomato richness isn't a stylistic choice. It's a cost decision wearing a flavor profile. Number 4, Del Monte. The memory, the pantry staple can, trusted without a second thought since childhood. Here's the thing about Del Monte. The name has been split, licensed, and passed through different corporate hands across different product categories for decades, which means the ketchup on your shelf doesn't necessarily share DNA or priorities with the fruit cup in your pantry. Brand licensing lets a company sell the trust in the name without necessarily protecting the recipe that earned it. Call it what it is: brand equity being spent down. When a flagship condiment becomes a smaller and smaller sliver of a company's overall business, it stops getting the investment that made it a household name in the first place. Independent taste testing and consumer ratings on Del Monte ketchup trail the Heinz and Hunt's benchmarks on tomato intensity, and shopper feedback frequently notes an aftertaste that reads as artificial rather than fruit-forward. Takeaway: brand recognition doesn't guarantee recipe quality. The label can outlive the reason you trusted it. Number 3, Heinz reduced sugar. The memory, the health-conscious household reaching for the better-for-you cap, assuming less sugar means more tomato. The catch, and it's a real one, is that ketchup's flavor balance is a 3-legged stool: acid, sugar, salt. Pull one leg out and the other two have to compensate, or the whole thing tips over. Reduced sugar formulas typically bring in alternative sweeteners and thickening adjustments to keep the texture familiar, which changes the finish even when the tomato content stays roughly the same. Read that sentence, then read what happened next. Reduced sugar is a marketing claim about one ingredient. It says nothing about whether the tomato content went up, down, or stayed exactly where it was. Companies know shoppers assume healthier means more real, and that assumption alone drives sales without requiring the tomato content to change at all. Taste test panels and consumer reviews describe a thinner, tangerous, sometimes chalky finish compared to the standard recipe. The alternative sweeteners doing a job real sugar used to do, imperfectly. Takeaway: lower sugar doesn't automatically mean better ketchup. Read the whole label, not just the front of the cap. Number 2, Heinz, no sugar added. The memory, the diabetic household, the low-carb household, reaching for the one bottle that promises to solve the problem entirely. The investigation here is short and blunt. No sugar added means artificial sweeteners doing all the sweetness work with none of sugar's mouthfeel, and the finish reads differently on the tongue. Thinner, sometimes with a faint chemical trail that lingers after the fry's gone. The real kicker is that this bottle isn't really about a better ketchup. It's about portfolio expansion, a giant condiment company covering every dietary niche on the shelf, so no health-conscious shopper walks past the logo to a smaller competitor. That's a legitimate business strategy. It is not the same thing as recipe excellence. Consumer advice here is simple. Know why you're buying it. If you need the sugar-free option for a real medical reason, it does its job. If you're buying it assuming no sugar means more tomato, you're buying a marketing decision, not a flavor upgrade. Number 1, Heinz, current standard recipe. The memory, the gold standard. The bottle every backyard barbecue in America measured itself against for over a century. Here's how it works, and here's the money story underneath the label everybody knows. Henry John Heinz built this company on ripe tomatoes and purity. That was the actual sales pitch in the 1800s, purity as the brand. Then, in 2015, Kraft Foods merged with H.J. Heinz under Berkshire Hathaway in 3G Capital, a deal valued at roughly $46 billion. Take a second with that, $46 billion, and the firm steering the combined company afterward. 3G Capital built its reputation on zero-based budgeting, a management style where every single expense has to be rejustified from zero each year, instead of adjusted from the year before. It's an efficiency religion. It is documented, publicly reported, and it followed the Kraft-Heinz merger through years of plant closures and layoffs across the combined company. I want to be precise here. because precision is the whole point of this channel. There is no confirmed filed document proving the standard ketchup formula itself was directly altered because of the merger. What is documented is the broader cost-cutting culture across the company in the years after 2015, and what's measurable is this. Blind taste tests over the last decade show competitors like Sir Kensington's and premium regional brands closing the gap on Heinz in ways they never used to. The consumer takeaway isn't Heinz got worse. It's that the field caught up while Heinz spent a decade optimizing a spreadsheet instead of widening its lead. Here's the pattern, and it's the whole investigation in one breath. The story isn't that every ketchup company got bought by private equity. It's that nearly every major manufacturer answers to the exact same pressure. Public shareholders, quarterly earnings, tomato prices climbing every single year. When the cost of a tomato goes up, a company has exactly three choices: raise the price and risk losing the shopper, accept a smaller profit and risk the board, or quietly change what's inside the bottle and hope nobody who buys it twice a year notices. Walmart, Albertsons, Conagra, Kraft Heinz. Different logos, same spreadsheet, same three choices. And almost every one of them picked door number 3 in one way or another. If you've made it this far, hit subscribe, because the next batch of companies proves this isn't inevitable. Thankfully, not everybody played that game. Number 4, True Made Foods. Founder-led, built on a simple frustration. Most healthier condiments quietly swap sugar for something worse. True Made Foods went the other direction, using vegetables to cut added sugar while keeping the tomato flavor up front instead of masking it. The proof is in the ingredient panel itself. Vegetables doing the sweetness work instead of high fructose corn syrup, and a tomato-forward flavor that tastes like it was built for people who actually read labels, not for a shelf price target. The sensory payoff: less sugar sweet on the front end, more tomato acidity holding through the finish, closer to what a fresh tomato actually tastes like than what most Americans now think ketchup is supposed to taste like. The honest caveat: it costs more, and you'll feel that at checkout. Takeaway: an excellent choice for lower sugar households willing to pay for the swap. Number 3. Sir Kensington started by founders Scott Norton and Mark Ramadan with a straightforward premise: ketchup built around premium, whole food ingredients instead of the cheapest inputs that could clear a margin target. The proof: ripe tomatoes, balanced acidity, a recipe built to taste like tomatoes rather than sugar wearing a tomato costume. Unilever acquired the brand, which is worth naming honestly. Bigger distribution followed, and so far the recipe has held its premium positioning rather than getting quietly diluted the way so many acquired brands do. Sensory payoff: a sharper, more vinegar-forward tang that cuts through a burger instead of just sweetening it. Honest caveat: the price sits well above the mainstream bottles on the same shelf. Takeaway: proof that a big parent company doesn't automatically mean a stripped-down recipe, if the brand protects its own identity hard enough. Number 2, Organicville independent, organic focus, and small enough that it has to compete on ingredient integrity because it can't compete on shelf space muscle. The proof: USDA organic certification, no high fructose corn syrup anywhere in the formula, and organic tomato sourcing that keeps the acidity and brightness intact instead of buried under filler. Sensory payoff: a cleaner, brighter tang, less syrupy thick than the mainstream bottles. Closer to what a fresh tomato sauce tastes like, reduced down with vinegar and salt. Honest caveat: smaller production runs mean it's genuinely harder to find on a national chain shelf. Takeaway: proof that staying small and independent can be a feature, not a limitation. Number 1, Red Gold family owned since 1942, still controlled today by the Reichart family. No private equity firm, no public shareholders demanding a number every 90 days. Here's the thing that makes this the number 1 hero. Red Gold works directly with Midwestern tomato growers, using vine-ripened fruit instead of the cheapest available commodity paste. And because there's no Wall Street calendar dictating decisions, the company can protect that sourcing relationship even in years when tomato prices spike. The proof: independent taste comparisons consistently rank Red Gold near the top for tomato intensity and balance. And the company has grown steadily for decades without ever needing to sell out to a private equity buyer looking to load it with debt and cash out. Sensory payoff: thick, rich, genuinely tomato first. The ketchup tastes like a reduction, not a syrup. Honest caveat: regional availability means plenty of shoppers outside the Midwest have never even seen the bottle. Takeaway: sometimes the best ketchup in the country isn't the one with the biggest advertising budget. It's the one that never had to answer to anybody but the family whose name is on it. So next time you're standing in the condiment aisle, don't just recognize the label. Read it. Check where tomato concentrate sits on the ingredient list. Compare it against water and corn syrup. The most familiar bottle on the shelf isn't always the best value, and it's definitely not always the best ketchup. If you appreciate an investigation that follows the evidence instead of the advertising, subscribe to Tasted and Tested. We don't run sponsors, and nobody's telling us what to recommend. We read the labels, the filings, and the fine print so you don't have to. If tonight was useful, a super thanks helps keep it that way, and sharing this with somebody still buying ketchup on brand recognition alone helps more than you'd think. Next time, the mayonnaise brand's quietly replacing real ingredients, and the handful still made the way your mother made it.